Hello everyone and welcome to episode 7 of Rapid Fire with me, Wolvie, and today I am joined by Liz, known affectionately as Effie Elf. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. So for people that have seen the show before, and a recap for those that may have only seen bits or none at all, first thing we do is we're going to go straight for the Rapid Fire challenge. I'll tell you now that the record was set in episode 6 by Craig, OG Paintworks, of 1 minute and 12 seconds, or 1 minute, no, and 1 minute 11 seconds. So he's very quick. So we'll do that, and then after that we'll just go through and flesh out and have a little chat about your hobby life. So
fantastic.
I'll use my technological phone to set a little timer for us, and we will get ready to start. So if you're ready.
Yep.
Okay, so your time starts now. How many years have you been in the hobby?
1.
How many game systems do you follow?
D&D, 5e, AOS and 40k.
What are your current armies?
Necrons, Admech, Sylvaneth. That's it.
What was your first miniature?
Zangor Shaman, I can't say it.
What was your first army?
Sylvaneth.
What model or unit have you enjoyed painting the most?
Necrons, Doomstalker.
What model or unit have you enjoyed painting the least?
Moloch's Mob.
What was the last model you finished?
Doomstalker.
How much hobby time do you get per week?
An hour.
What is the current model you're working on?
Locust Heavy Destroyer.
What is your single favourite thing about the hobby?
The community.
What is your least favourite thing about the hobby?
People taking it far too seriously.
Who or what got you into the hobby?
D&D.
What keeps you in the hobby?
An addiction to plastic.
And what is one hobby target you've got for the rest of this year?
Finish my Necrons.
And that is it. That's the 15 questions. Your time is up. So
that's so slow.
You say that, but so in first place obviously is 1 minute 11 seconds.
Yeah.
You did it in 1 minute 25, which actually puts you second on our leaderboard.
Hey!
So that's still a good time. You know, there was a lot of pausing to like look over at what models and stuff you had going on.
Yeah. All my minis are there, and I immediately forgot every time you asked me a question.
No, you did very well. You did better than the first two guys who are obviously in-house loaded bolter guys, and they were 3 minutes plus. Everyone else is out. Yeah, they'll drop off the leaderboard very quickly. They're done. But yeah, I'm the same. I've got my miniatures here, so occasionally I look over here. But then you've done the same thing. So expand then on how you got into the hobby. So you said it was D&D, and then obviously you fleshed out from there. Talk to me more about that.
Yeah, I've always been a bit nerdy and enjoyed gaming and stuff, and but I kind of lost touch with it all. I was in the RAF for 5 years, and there was just really no scope to do any of that. And then when I left, my best mate was nagging me for months to join his D&D game, and I was like, oh no, that's not my cup of tea, sort of thing. And then I joined the game, and I was immediately obsessed. And then I was like, oh, I need a mini for my D&D character. So I dragged my dad, because I was too scared to go on my own. I dragged my dad into Warhammer and didn't find a mini for my character. I came out with a Zangor Shaman and like a lot of paint and spent a lot of money. And then it all came from there, really. So I paint, obviously, Warhammer, but also D&D minis and basically whatever I feel like. So yeah.
Well, to be fair, that's kind of the way forward. So with Dungeons and Dragons, you're talking to somebody who, despite the fact I've got a love of this hobby, for some reason I've never had the opportunity to, and I've never played Dungeons and Dragons. So one of the things that I would have absolutely no idea, how do you start a character? Like, what do you do to know what your starting stats are? Because I've got absolutely no idea.
So there's different ways. My main group, we play online because we're like 4 hours apart. So for us, our dungeon master bought all of the like books and stuff on a website called D&D Beyond. So he's got all of the content unlocked, and we all log in on his account and make our characters on there. And it's like you just build it electronically on the website. But if you, in its most simple terms, if you buy the player's handbook, and then that talks you through how to get started. But the best option is to just sit down with someone who knows what they're doing, because honestly, if you don't know what you're doing, it's quite tricky.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes for the whole wargaming thing, isn't it? If you kind of just look at it, like it can be overwhelming to like if you look at your first rule book. So I guess it's a case of that.
The DM just sat with me on Discord and just talked me through how to make the character. I mean, you asked me to make a character on a paper character sheet now, I probably couldn't do it, but I can do it. I can build it online, just not.
Yeah, and I think everyone always kind of says, oh, D&D, like really nerdy, this, that, and the other. I would love them to say it to Vin Diesel's face, who's, one of the most famous D&D players. And I think, was it Triple X? He had these D&D characters, like, name tattooed across him, which
it's so popular. But it's been repopularized with things like Stranger Things and obviously Critical Role, which is the most well-known D&D kind of live streamers, and then they do podcasts and stuff. It's become really popular again, but it's very different from, like, because my dad used to play D&D, and I've tried to rope him into our games, and he's like, no, it's not the same. It's all very complicated now.
I mean, that's fair enough. It was better in my day. I can.
Yeah, it's taken on a whole life of its own.
So between obviously D&D and 40k, you've obviously found yourself in Age of Sigmar by picking a Dissentian Tangle. I know nothing about Age of Sigmar. I know absolutely zero.
I mean, I don't really. I just literally, I couldn't find any mini to represent my D&D character, so I just picked one I thought was cool and bought some paint and off I went. I was also really like anxious and nervous in there, so I was just like, okay, I'll just buy things and then go. But yeah, I started with AOS, and I told myself I would never do 40k, and then they launched Indomitus and the new Necrons, and then it all went to pieces.
So what was it about the new Necrons that kind of made you go?
I don't know. I think being very uneducated about the hobby at that stage, like I kind of just thought 40k, I was like, oh, it's just Space Marines, and they've never really appealed to me. And then I was like, oh, those Necrons are cool though. I love how they look. And then I just found myself with like grabby hands, and I needed it. So
it doesn't hurt. I have a lot of Necrons. It doesn't hurt that they're pretty good on the old tabletop as well. To be fair, they're not to be trifled with.
Yeah, my other half plays Necrons, and he likes his. So
does he have a Nightbringer? Because they are the worst.
Yeah, he's using a proxy, a creature caster mini, which is really nice, which he prefers to the actual Nightbringer.
Yeah, obviously the Nightbringer sculpt is pretty old, but yeah. I faced one back when we were allowed to play in the UK. I faced one back in, I think, October. It was the last game, and I thought, I hadn't played a Nightbringer in years, and I thought, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to charge a Demon Prince into it. So I just made it disappear. Like it was almost like having Thanos in the middle of the board. He was just making Land Raiders and Demon Princes disappear. So I'm proper terrified of Necrons, and especially the Nightbringer. So what are some of your favorite models that you've managed to now accrue across all of the things? Like what are the models you've not necessarily enjoyed painting the most, but the models you think just look the coolest?
I mean, seriously, I'm looking over there again. I love the new Necrons. The new Necrons are really cool. I've got a load of AdMech stuff, which I've yet to start. I love those as well. I've kind of moved away a bit from Age of Sigmar, as I've got more into the hobby. And I hate to admit it, because I told myself I would never paint the Space Marine because I just didn't really like them. But I got some commission work in for Ultramarines, and I really enjoyed painting them. And I now have some heavy intercessors to paint, and I recently did a Predator. I think kit wise, they're just so nice to build and to paint. And yeah, the Necron kits are not so nice. They're what they are, but they're really fiddly and difficult to build.
Yeah, they've got some like the spindly legs, like you're gluing it on with the smallest contact points. Obviously,
Yeah.
one of our guys is a Necron player, and you know you're gluing on with the smallest points, and I can imagine that's pretty nerve-wracking.
Yeah, it is. But I've done some really nice 3D prints as well. I'm not a fan of resin. Not just going to put that out there.
I don't think many people are. I'm currently working on a resin model, and he's not too bad, but
yeah, I'm not a fan of resin minis. I'll paint them because they look, you know, the detail you can get on them is amazing, but I just don't really enjoy them. Yeah, and I've done some really nice 3D prints. I did a massive dragon with a 40-centimeter wingspan. So it was literally like that was amazing, and that was a 3D print, which was pretty cool. So yeah.
3D printing has really come along, because even you go back kind of, I say 5 years ago, 3D printing, you could see all the layers going up a model.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I saw one today. He goes, "Oh, this is my second 3D printed model." I saw it on Instagram, and I was like, "That is clean. That is like."
Yeah.
And that's how far it's coming. So in terms of then your painting, obviously you're good enough to be commissioned. To be commissioned.
Well, it's a friend. It's for a friend, so it's like that's how I started, and then the dragon I did was a commission.
Yeah, but to be fair, I mean, I've seen your work, and I imagine obviously all of your followers have seen your work as well. You're a damn good painter, and obviously you use. A lot of people stick to what I consider like their style. You see that they've got a specific style.
Yeah.
You tend to have you seem to have a big spectrum. Like you'll do a model where it's all blends and really colourful, and then you'll do something else where it's different. It's more clean. So
yeah.
Is this all based on, how did you learn this? Is it classes? Is it self-taught?
I set out when I started the hobby. It's why I didn't tie myself down. I can't talk. To a particular army initially. I just picked up bits of what I really like the look of.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to try as many different techniques and styles and as possible. So I suppose that's probably where it comes from. But I'm always one to keep pushing and try different things, and there's not really much method in there. It's just kind of slap it on and hope that it looks okay. I don't know, to be honest. It just kind of happens. I don't really tend to plan out schemes that much either. I kind of just turn it over a bit in my hand and pick a few paints and go, really. Just kind of comes together.
if that's what works, then that's what works. So I've seen that you've done a couple of like painting tutorials and stuff in the past. Is that something you're looking to branch out on and continue doing, or is that just like a couple of one-shot deals?
Well, I have so many things I want to do. Like I want to get into Twitch streaming. I would like to do the whole YouTube thing, but for me, the reality is that my full-time job is too demanding, and I'm, doing a degree, and for now, that has to be my priority. So for now, I'm just doing like a bit of commission work here and there, and then keeping up with Instagram. But I have plans. They're just a long way off. It was handy because I don't have any editing software or anything. So it was kind of just like, it was Warhip. So he was just like, just film it and I'll do the rest. So I did very awkwardly make my way through a couple of tutorials.
Well, I'd never edited before episode 1 of this. So I just kind of downloaded a free editing suite, and that's what's sort of working for me. So if I can learn it, I trust that you can, like when the time comes. So
yeah,
there's no doubt there. So obviously, without knowing your exact location, because although I do research, I'm not a complete stalker. I happen to know that you are near Warhammer Mecca.
I am.
How many visits? How many visits have you made there?
Many. The thing is, I didn't know it existed, obviously, before I got into the hobby. I didn't really know anything about it. And there's 2 stores in Nottingham. So there's the smaller one in the city centre, and then there's obviously Warhammer World. And the first time I actually went was on my 2nd date with my partner.
That's cute.
Yeah, he took me there on our 2nd date. We went around the exhibition, couldn't think of the word. And then I spent too much money, and then it kind of goes from there, really. So we go, well, pre-COVID and all of that, we'd go for lunch quite a lot and just have a wander around, spend a lot of money, and come home.
If I mention like Warhammer World in passing, my partner, she's been with me twice, just because we've been up that way. She loves Bugman's. She absolutely loves the bar and the food they serve, and you can't fault them. And I think I must have had all of the Bugman's beers by now as well. So.
I love it. Yeah, I just like to go. I like to watch people obviously playing the game and have a wander around, look at the tables. It's just a nice atmosphere.
Have you played on any yet? Have you been able to play any games there yet?
No, I am going to learn, but again, we don't have the space at home, and we want to do it on a proper table, and so when we can, we're going to book a table at Warhammer World, and I am going to be taught to play.
I highly recommend it, and I can't remember the name of it, but I highly recommend there's a table where they use a Titan as scenery. It's a £1,000 model that you're just fighting around as scenery, and you just kind of every so often you're like, I'm using my models, and there's just a Titan just dead in the middle here, just taking the bits. So, but yeah, so the tables there are fantastic, and you can kind of move stuff around to kind of get a more unique feel. So one of the other things that I notice about you is that you refer to yourself on a few occasions as a dice goblin. How many sets of dice? How many sets of dice do you have?
Well, not as many as some. Hold on, let me locate the bag.
That's fairly sizable.
Yeah, it's weighty too.
I imagine there's just all different types and.
How can I show you? Hold on. Try and do it without.
Try not to spill them out.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's all full.
That is a full bag. What's the highest dice you've got? Because I know somebody who's got a D100. So
yeah,
you've got a D100.
Obviously, yeah, because I got into dice through D&D. You have everything from a D4 up to a D100. Obviously, the main dice being the D20. So. I've got a lot, and I think I have the Ideneth Deepkin dice set and the Sylvaneth set as well, so I have a load of D6s wandering around somewhere.
Yeah, I've always found the GW dice to be bloody hard to read.
Yes, I did notice that, but they looked pretty.
They do look pretty.
I've been so good and not bought dice for ages. Been buying minis instead, but I have a few gemstone sets of dice, which were very expensive. So that's why they have a nice bag.
I mean, I've got a custom bag made by one of my friends, and I just love a nice dice bag. But I don't have all that many dice in there. I've literally got probably 60, and 40 of those are identical.
Yeah.
I'm not a dice collector, but I know quite a lot of people can appreciate good dice and a good set of well balanced dice. And for me personally, I like the tabletop tactics dice. I just think they roll so nicely and they just feel like a good product. But I imagine there's a lot more dice suppliers out there.
it's ridiculous that I have so many, because the amount of times I've played D&D in person, so limited. I don't actually roll these dice.
So it's
really,
definitely
ever.
more of a collection item than anything else then.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a side effect of the hobby. So on side effects of the hobby, this is a discussion I've had before. I had it with Tanya, who was on episode 4.
Yeah.
One of the negative side effects of the hobby, and I mean, in this country at the moment, obviously, the way that women are treated in general is currently up there in the media.
Yeah.
And we've had, certainly within the Warhammer community in the last week or so, you know, the gatekeepers, you know, coming out to play as they kind of do every few months or so. How?
Yeah, my post was lucky enough to be used in one of those.
and that's why I kind of brought it up here, that he kind of targeted you because you happened to be in one of the things that he shared. How do you? Because I've never dealt with it really. Because as somebody who's been in the hobby since I was about 11, the only gatekeeping I ever dealt with back in the day was the ageist side. That used to exist. It used to be you'd have the veterans, and you know they'd see some like teenage kids, and they're we don't want anything to do with those. That used to be what we dealt with. But obviously, in the modern era with social media, the hate for some reason seems to come towards women who want to paint and roll dice. And what's your experience of that, and how have you dealt with it without it letting it kind of get to you?
This is actually the first time. So this recent incident is the first time I've ever been directly involved in any. Oh, I can't talk. Sorry, I've been teaching all day.
It's okay.
And I've tried really hard this whole time I've been on Instagram to walk a real middle line so as not to attract any of that kind of hate. Just because I am someone that suffers with anxiety, so I don't need any extra rubbish going on in my life. I pile enough on myself as it is.
Yeah.
So I didn't want my Instagram account to become a place that made me anxious. And obviously the rare occasion that I did post a selfie with a mini, I ended up, with that happening. I mean, you scroll through my Instagram, it's very rare you see my face. It's mostly just minis. And that's how I choose. It's okay, whatever you do on your own Instagram account. I don't know why people feel the need to police it. But it was made personal at that point, and that really it did get to me. But I was very sort of overwhelmed with the way that people rallied around and really just fought my corner for me. I barely had to do anything myself. And I think on the whole, the community is really, really good in that respect. I just think there's a few bad eggs that shout a bit louder sometimes.
And I kind of equate it to any attention is good attention. And some people, they watch films and they want to be the bad guy. I think that's where it comes down, isn't it? That some people just want to be.
Yeah, I mean, it actually worked very much to his disadvantage because it sent a lot more people my way, and I gained a lot more support from it. So in a way, it was good, but it wasn't nice to be subjected to that, because I wouldn't say anything if a guy posted a selfie with a mini. I don't care. If something bothers me that much, I just ignore it and move on. I don't know. I mean, I teach 5-year-olds for a living, and I feel like some of them would have the ability to do that more than others.
Yeah, it's obviously it's the tolerance thing, and like I say, sometimes I think that might not even that might well be their beliefs, but it might not be. But it's still it's just a way to, they think they're going to grab attention, or they think they're going to bring some sort of following to themselves, and in that case, thankfully, it worked negatively. I think just about anybody who studied his account over those few days watched those following numbers just drop down.
There were a lot of other questionable opinions on there as well. So it wasn't just that, but I think he, inadvertently picked on the wrong person. Because I didn't know anything about it until it was already all over and everyone knew about it. And then it was like, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to block him and that'll be that.
I think in the hobby we've got some, some kind of strong women who have been there through that before. They've had this and they know how to deal with that. So for them to come through, as well as obviously the outspoken guys as well, for the women to come through and kind of and help you as well is important, because at some point some troll's going to come back in another year or so or whenever it is, and then you'll know a bit more how to deal with it, and there'll be some other poor person that you might be able to lend your thing and say, right, this is what's going to happen over the next few days, just sit back and watch, get the popcorn, because they're about to get torn apart. And that it was
really nice, because as I said, I didn't follow him or know anything about him, and I had several different girls that I don't particularly talk too much that are sort of in the hobby. One she's a cosplayer, she doesn't paint at all, and they all had messaged me and said, have you seen this, we've reported it, blah blah blah. And then I passed it on to others to make sure they were aware of him. So it was a real nice community coming together in a weird way.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things a lot of people say about the hobby. Their favorite thing about the hobby is the community, and their least favorite thing about the hobby is that one section of the community that kind of always gives the bad rep. So coming away from that now, we've covered that. So what are your upcoming projects? I know you said you don't necessarily get a lot of painting time. You've got a lot of other stuff going on at the moment in terms of work and stuff like that. But what are some of your upcoming projects? What have you got on the painting line ready to go?
Next thing I have prepped is the Locust Heavy Destroyer for Necrons, and then I'm not sure whether I will, because I've got my next commission piece, which is Heavy Intercessors, so I may move on to them next. But my main goal is to get my Necrons done this year. I think that's realistic.
I mean, I don't know how many you've got, so it might well be realistic.
There's a lot.
But obviously, like any army, you're probably going to go back and flesh it out with more of the other stuff as well as time goes on.
I think as and when I come to obviously putting it on a table, I think my priorities will be very different, because at the minute I've kind of just gone, oh, a new shiny model that looks cool, and then I've bought it, and so I don't think the army is particularly workable on the table. So
I think when we're all kind of starting out, we do that. I think everywhere. So you play a few games, you kind of listen to whatever advice of whoever you're playing with or against, and provided people are willing to help you out. And it's always worth, when I'm researching a new army, I always look at what the guys are doing on, say, like tabletop tactics, and I read the lists and I go, right, how did that go in that game? And I take issue from those lists there. And Goonhammer is also really good for lists as well. So that can kind of help, when you're looking at what to table or what to put on the thing.
I think when you start playing the game, your priorities and your perception of what you need to buy and how to build the army is very different to if you're just painting.
Well, coming out of lockdown, I will have 2 new armies. I've got a Grey Knights army and an Eldar army.
Love it. Eldar is one thing I would like to do.
So and they're very bright, my Eldar. They are very bright yellow and very bright blue. But
Nice.
Obviously I'm buying them based on a list that I've seen, or a variation of a list that I've seen. But I don't know if they're going to suit my playstyle yet, because I've not had a chance to play with them, because until I don't even know which restriction it is in the UK that means we can play. I think it's the May one. I think it's the one in May that means that we can look anymore. That's if that goes ahead, but obviously in the UK we're a bit stuck for what we can and can't do. So as always, one of the last questions I always ask people, I always say one of the last questions. It's like the last question that I ask anybody. Okay. What are your hobbies away from the hobby? What else grabs you? What else do you do? Music, all that sort of stuff.
I do enjoy reading. I'm trying to get back into reading. So obviously my life takes up a lot of my time, my work and life commitments, being an adult. So reading's a big one that I'm really trying to enforce. And otherwise, just gaming really. I play a lot of video games. I'm playing Valhalla at the minute, loving that.
Okay, is this, I'm guessing this is console gaming. Yeah, which console?
PS4 Pro at the moment, wanting the PS5.
Good. Good.
But
if you were an Xbox player, I was going to end it there. No, I'm kidding.
No, I used to be, and then PlayStation just has better exclusives. So, yeah, I'm wanting PS5, but waiting for the next Horizon Zero Dawn before I bite that bullet. Plus, you can't actually buy one at the minute anyway. So.
No, I mean, yeah, the pandemic hasn't really helped that. There's still not many PS5s out there, but
there aren't any.
I think, yeah, I think a PS5 is obviously it's in my future, but I'm going to wait until I get the next house, which will be in about, I don't know, about 18 months time, and I think when I build the man cave there, then I'll get the PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
So
love it. Mine's just in the living room at the moment, but my other half has like a whole room in the back of the house. That's his hobby room, and he doesn't console games, so it's fine.
Yeah, I'm lucky enough that my partner has granted me this room that I'm in. You know, things you can't see is obviously this. I'm at my painting desk, but I've got cabinets, and then over there I've got, you know, Star Wars. I've got Batman comics, every Batman film, including all the anime. So I've literally got Harry Potter, everything, just a whole wall. So I'm lucky enough to have a man cave. It's one of those things that I think every bloke, they call it a man cave, but I think obviously a lot of women have got their hobby rooms and stuff as well. So it's the dream of every nerd, isn't it? So
although with us both being in the hobby, there's a lot of Warhammer in this house, and most of it's unpainted.
Yeah, no, my partner's not into it at all, so this is all just me.
Love it.
Well, I think we'll come to the end there, so just want to say thank you for joining me for this. It's been really interesting getting to know more about you, more about your hobby life, and being able to share that with people who perhaps know you but don't know as much as they may do now.
Thank you for having me.
So you can find Liz. Her details will be below her picture on this screen. Effie Elf is. She is an extraordinary painter, extraordinary person, and we were very lucky to have her. So thank you very much for joining us.